Part 25. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 241. When the distant and light bell rang, Lum Wen was drinking and chatting with other people in the courtyard of the inn in the city. The countdown to the preliminary round has begun. Luoli's eyes were filled with excitement. Lum Wen shook the white jade wine glass in his hand, and the red liquid inside was crystal clear. From today onwards, we will target more elite teams from other countries. Shouldn't it be that we can finally grab the jade card? Nan's fair face flushed after drinking, making him even more gorgeous. Lum Wen had no choice but to sigh that Nan Guang was quite attractive just by looking at her appearance. Helian Li drank the spirit wine in the cup. We should have kept Mouton and killed them now, so that we can get a few more purple jade plagues. Before the countdown bell of the competition space rang, the identity jade cards of all Death Sword Masters would shatter and dissipate, so the jade cards of Mouton and several people disappeared a few days ago. You're a typical aftermath. Nan glanced at him. When are we going to the central city? Ye Qinghan asked, looking up at Lum Wen. Lum Wen stuck his chin with one hand and shook the wine glass with the other. Hurry up tonight and go directly to the central city tomorrow. At this time, this team of 5 groups has a faint trend of being dominated by Lum Wen, and basically no one will object to her decision. Nan, I heard that you have always been well informed, Lum Wen asked lazily. Seeing her half-squinted eyes, Nan lazily put her body on the stone table. With an indescribable aura, her eyes rolled, and she smiled coyly. Little beauty really understands me. Lum Wen rolled his eyes at him. I'll leave it to you to inquire about the purple, orange, and cyan jade cards. If you see which teams are ruthless and cruel, we will attack those teams. The second round of competition is mainly to grab identity jade cards, 10 purple jade cards, 30 orange jade cards, 50 cyan jade cards, and at least 100 jade cards of other colors can continue to advance. In the countdown to the preliminary round, competition for jade cards is allowed, and there must be gang fights everywhere in these 10 days. No problem, leave this to me. Sinan threw a charming wink at Lum Wen. Lum Wen shivered, goosebumps fell on the ground, and said coolly, De Sao Bao. Nan choked. Lum Wen was really not a normal woman. If in the past, he had shown such an evil and charming smile to the talented female swordsmen of the imperial capital at will, it would not have caused a group of girls to go crazy. But it is precisely because of her specialness that he is interested in her, isn't it? Luoli and Helian Li couldn't help but cast a contemptuous look at Nan. They deserved it. Ye Qinghan's beautiful thin lips evoked a slight arc. Lum Wen didn't like Nan's type of man. When it got dark, Lum Wen and his party left the inn and rushed towards the central city. As soon as they left the city, more than a dozen elite teams immediately followed them. Lum Wen and others turned a blind eye. In recent days, they have followed elite teams from other countries every time they hunt at night, and the number of teams has continued to increase. After learning that Lum Wen can use the formation to deal with the medium-sized beasts, many people have moved their minds. In addition, as long as they pay 2/3 of the monster crystal core to kill the monsters, they can enter the fire formation to kill monsters and earn money points, so everyone follows them unanimously. Lum Wen didn't object either. Several of her monsters were very picky, and now she only eats the 6th order monster crystal nuclei for refining. Besides, if they continue to eat alone, they will inevitably lead to joint counterattacks by many elite teams from major powers. If they leave out some broth for them to drink, they will not say they will form an alliance, but at least they will not join the army to conquer them. This night was a little different from the past. Sword masters from different teams were on guard against each other, fearing who would suddenly come out and snatch the jade card. Fortunately, Lum Wen said hello in advance. Anyone who wants to hunt with them at night to earn points must abide by the rules, and they are not allowed to kill each other, which has put an end to the careful thinking of many people. That night, under the guidance of Mo Yan, they wiped out 5 waves of beast tides and arrived at the central city at dawn the next day. The central city is majestic, and you can feel a solemn and distant atmosphere from a distance. The city can accommodate tens of thousands of people, and the streets are bustling. There are a few more inns in the central city than in other refuge cities, but they still went to the largest one, where there are other courtyards reserved for the superpower elite teams. No matter where it is, it will be special, and only the strong can become the party that enjoys it. Lum Wan, are we still going out to hunt tonight? Luo Li asked Lum Wan when he was about to go back to his room. Others also turned their attention to her to see how she decided. We won't go tonight, let's restore our combat strength, and go to the group battle tomorrow. Lum Wan left a sentence and entered the room. The others looked at each other. Is there really a group battle tomorrow? So excited, have you? The 5 groups have been in contact with Lum Wan for a long time, and they have been infected by her temperament, and they have a tendency to like stimulation, so they are very enthusiastic about the next jade card snatch. You didn't feel the resentment that was hiding across the street before. After entering the room, Mo Yan jumped from Lum Wan's shoulders onto the bed and stretched out. Lum Wan looked at the prudent and noble Mo Yan's casual and lazy virtue, and couldn't help a smile on her lips. How could I not feel such deep resentment? Why don't we grab their jade cards tomorrow? Mo Yan found a soft position and suggested. Lum Wan glanced at him angrily. It's too cheap for her. I told her to let her experience the taste of being on the cloud and falling down. Before they checked into the inn just now, they cast an obscure, malicious look from an alley with murderous intent. Even if Lum Wan hadn't recovered his mental strength, he didn't need to look to know that it was Schwellinger. Before she humiliated Schwellinger and didn't kill her, it wasn't because she didn't dare or couldn't do it, it was purely to destroy her both physically and mentally in the future, otherwise it would be boring to play like that. Mo Yan raised his head with a few glitter in his star-like eyes. Whoever offends this woman will be unlucky. Bing Ji trembled at the smile on Lum Wan's lips. As long as the owner smiled like that, someone would definitely be out of luck. The cannibal king shrunk the main branch, secretly thankful that he had abandoned the dark and turned to the light early at that time, otherwise he would not have specified how to be cleaned up by the little master. Only Meow Meow kept rubbing against Lum Wan's wrist intimately, indicating that everything the master did was right. Lum Wan naturally noticed the gazes of several spiritual pets. She laughed and shook her head, but she was very happy. They did not act that night, and Lum Wan called everyone out of the city early the next morning. Everyone is basically satisfied with their own points ranking, just keep a good ranking, and the more important thing at present is to compete for the jade card. When they walked to a deep mountain in the distance, they were looking for sword masters from other countries to grab some jade cards while hunting to earn points, but they were blocked by a large group of allied men and horses who suddenly appeared. These people basically have 4 words written on their faces: bad intentions. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 242. Suddenly, silhouettes continued to emerge from all directions in the mountains, and there were nearly 100 people in total. Lum Wan swept the cultivation bases of the people who came here. Most of them were in the middle and high ranks of the Sword Emperor. The leading ones were at the peak of the Sword Emperor, and one of them was an old acquaintance, Jiu. Jiu, your bereaved dog has made a lot of battle this time. What are you trying to do? Nan opened his folding fan with a smile and took a step forward, casually scanning the group of leaders. Jiu couldn't get used to seeing Nan the most, and he was so cruel with his mouth and heart that he specifically attacked other people's sore spots. Nan, if you don't want to cause trouble, take your people and leave first. Jiu was still very afraid of this sassy man. He found out that Nan usually doesn't mind his own business, so he wanted to get people away first, and then dealt with Sinan after he got rid of Lum Wan and others. Of course, Sinan knew Jiu's intentions, not to mention that he was interested in Lum Wan now. Even if he wasn't interested, he couldn't let it go just by asking her to detoxify. Jiu, aren't you blind? Seeing Jiu's black face, Sinan felt relieved. It's obviously because you brought someone to find us, but you still want to bite back. Jiu's own Sinan's mouth was poisonous and powerful. He didn't argue with him, and said to Lum Wan's group with a gloomy face, hand over the jade cards on your body, otherwise there will only be a dead end. Several people around him looked at Lum Wan with a half smile, and another important reason for coming to snatch the jade card this time was to snatch the treasure from this woman. I heard that she has a lot of third-grade medicinal pills on her body, especially the golden holy weapon, which is said to be magical. Although they were not completely convinced, they could not stop the greed and desire in their hearts. If that holy weapon was so miraculous, it would be a waste to hold it on Lum Wan, a small country swordsman. Jiu, your head is caught in the door. Luo Liwan hugged his hands with a bit of contempt in his eyes. Although you have more than twice as many as us, do you think that these rabble people can make us surrender? Identity Jade. Jiu's eyes showed a bit of killing intent. This Luo Li was too annoying. Since you don't eat and drink fine wine, don't blame us if you die. Since he dared to instigate the teams of other big powers China to intercept Luo Li and others, he was naturally prepared. Lum Wan frowned when she saw Jiu and the other leaders who were sure to win. What preparations these people must have made. As she thought, Jiu's leaders suddenly took a few steps back, and a woman in black and veiled beside him held an extra array of flags. Sacrifice, the woman's voice was hoarse and dull, sounding like she had passed her twilight years. The array flag in her hand turned into a black arc and flew into the sky. The black flag gradually unfolded, and a cloudy wind came from inside. Then she stamped a few dharmas on the black banner. Immediately, the array of flags flashed with black awns, and a cloudy wind surrounded the entire forest with mournful weeping. The smell of blood began to spread from all directions, and layers of scarlet mist also erupted from the array, which mixed with the bloody question, causing many people to turn pale. What kind of sorcery is this? Helian Lai asked cautiously. Lum Wan's eyes showed a bit of solemnity. Our place has already been set up by them. What formation? I saw that the banners were very evil. Sinan took a step back, always feeling that the yin and blood in the banners above were too heavy, which made him feel uncomfortable. He was not the only one who felt this way. Everyone present except Jiu felt a sense of disgust, and the irritability in their hearts was drawn out a little bit. Puff! Puff! This inexplicable voice kept ringing. Suddenly, one by one gray-white skeletons emerged from the ground, revealing their bodies little by little, and finally turned into skeletons, walking towards Lum Wan and others sluggishly with an evil spirit. It's really a corpse formation. Lum Wan spit out a cold sentence from the lips. Bone formation? Do you know this formation? Helian Li felt that the aura of the corpse skeletons constantly emerging around him was not weak. The skeleton formation is also known as the fire formation, which is a kind of evil formation in the subjugation technique. Lum Wan paused and continued. The magician who arranged the array first threw most of the people into the liquid to soak them, then heated the liquid, boiled the people alive, and then used the bones of the deceased to carry them with them. The soul of Xianxia and resentment attaches to it, and finally collects Luo into the array to form a formation, and uses the corpse energy to raise it. The souls of those who were killed and the spirits of the array masters collected resentful souls and turned them into nourishment for the array flags. As soon as the skeleton array is opened, the raised bones will emerge to form an attack source for the array. People who know the Buddhist practice recite the scriptures of transcendence with the voice of Yuan Li. Others protect the spiritual platform in the sea of consciousness. The bloody red fog in the formation has the effect of creating illusions. After Lum Wan finished speaking, she turned to Ling Fei Yang and said, "Cousin, do you know the scriptures for dispelling dark things?" Yes, Ling Fei Yang nodded. cousin, don't worry, I will help protect everyone's spiritual platform. Si Nan, Helian Li, Luo Li, and Luo Ye, the four of you will go to Zhen, Gan, Zhen, and Dui to guard each other. Don't put a skeleton in there. Lu Muan turned her head again and said to the others, you close up your spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, and divide them into 4 groups to help them kill the skeletons. Remember to cut off your legs and feet. She didn't expect Jiyu to invite someone with such high attainments to set up the evil formation, but luckily the other party's cultivation was only the first level of the Sword Sovereign, and the formation flag had not been upgraded yet, otherwise it would be troublesome to break the formation today. She stretched out her hand and kept changing her gestures, and one after another jade-colored runes jumped out of her palm to form a talisman that lingered around her. Lu Muan, what are you doing? Luo Li pursed his lips and asked, a little worried in his eyes. This kind of formation gave them a very strange feeling, and it was not easy to deal with. Lu Muan patted his shoulder and said with a smile, I'll break through the formation, don't worry, little wildcat. Luo Li nodded and stopped caring about her calling him little wildcat. In fact, he still liked this nickname from the bottom of his heart. You have to be careful. Seeing her confidence and brilliance, Luo Li lowered his head and smiled, turned, and walked towards Zhenfang, wielding his sword and began to kill the skeletons that kept emerging. Ling Fei Yang sat cross-legged, removed the string of beads from Lu Muan on his wrist, kept turning, and paragraphs of complicated and obscure scriptures came out of his mouth. Circles of extremely pale golden light spread from his body, and the bloody red mist disappeared as if it had encountered some nemesis. The mournful weeping in the forest grew louder and louder, forming a depressing and eerie atmosphere. Even the elders of the 6 major sects sitting in the central castle had serious expressions on their faces. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 243. The desolate cry sounded from far to near, and illusions began to appear in the minds of many sword masters with unstable hearts. Ling Fei Yang's face was slightly dark, his hand was sliding the Buddha beads tightly, and he kept reciting a difficult scripture in his mouth. Circles of pale golden charms were derived from the scriptures, and gradually surrounded the people in the formation. The sound of crying slowly died out. The few people with weak willpower in the formation had scarlet eyes and slashed with swords. When the voice that had been lingering in their ears disappeared, the illusion of the sea of blood mountains in front of them disappeared along with them. The scarlet in their eyes gradually faded, and their minds regained clarity for a while. Everyone who was affected by the magic sound is about to sit next to me, Ling Fei Yang said softly. A few people felt that their headaches were splitting and they were about to be unable to resist the magic sound that invaded the sea of consciousness. The person who quickly sat beside him and listened to a paragraph of reassuring scriptures escaped from his mouth, and the inexplicable madness in his chest wanted to kill. The irritability gradually disappeared. Lu Mu's lips raised an arc. His cousin's practice in Buddhism is indeed very talented, so she can break through the battle with peace of mind. In the central castle. What kind of formation is that? I looked at the evil section. The elders of Jianzhong furrowed their brows. The swordsmanship they practiced focuses on righteousness. Such evil formations are very annoying to them. The strong Beiji sect elder did not have the happy look on his face, and replied, the skeleton array is what the little girl said. Is that woman from that country? The wise white-robed elder in Tianji Palace asked the person behind him. Elder Hui, according to our information, the masked black-clothed woman is a swordsman from Hewa Kingdom, and she is a descendant of Hewa Kingdom's national master, the man replied respectfully. The elegant man of Yaozong tapped the table in front lightly with his fingers. His eyes were unclear. The black martial arts is prevalent in sorcery and is famous for its poison. This woman is a descendant of the national master, but it is understandable that this evil formation method is used. However, their medicine sect would not want such disciples, and he did not like the art of evil sect Gu poison. The eyes of the elders of Haoyu sect showed a hint of interest. In addition to body refining, their sect also had a small branch of sword masters who practiced the techniques of ghost and evil cultivators. Crazy old man, that woman is not inferior to the little girl in the formation of formation, you might as well go back and make a deal. The elder of the Royal Spirit sect looked at the strong old man of the 8 Extreme sect and smiled. The elder of the 8 Extreme sect snorted coldly. Although this sect is a large sect that studies formation techniques, it has never slaughtered innocent people to refine formation banners. Such a disciple would not dare to be. Even if the talent of this woman was much higher than Lum Weian's, he would not want it. Refining so many resentful spirits, the mind is indeed vicious. Jianzong elder then said. I don't know if the little girl Lu can handle it. It's a pity not to be lost in this formation. The elders of Yaozong sighed. They looked at this formation and they were extremely evil. It would be difficult to break the formation. The elder of the 8 Extreme sect rarely showed a worried look on his face. Keep watching, I'm more optimistic about the little girl Lu. Behind them, the handsome white-clothed allure man's narrow phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. If you look closely, you can see that there is a layer of worry and hostility in his eyes. He believed in the ability of the little woman in his family. If anyone dared to threaten her life, he would destroy the whole family. In the formation, the jade-colored rune became longer and longer, lingering around Lum Weian in circles. She reached out and did some calculations, took out a few pure white jade stones from the space ring, and tapped them with 2 fingers. Go. The pure white jade stones were thrown in 7 directions in the 4 directions, and the jade talismans lingering around her also turned into 8 streams of light and drilled into the jade. The masked woman in black who had been standing at the back watching the battle involuntarily frowned, her voice still hoarse. That young woman can form formations. Well, not only does she know, but she is also very good at formation, and she is not much better than Miss Noya. Jiu replied with a light smile. He knew that the more he praised Lum Weian, the more uncomfortable Noah would feel. Sure enough, Noah's brows wrinkled deeper. Just her worthy. In our eyes, Miss Noya is naturally 100 times stronger than her. Jiu agreed. But I didn't think so in my heart. Noah's sorcery formation was powerful, but it was still very difficult to trap Sinan and Luo Ye. The strength of those 2 people was unfathomable, and even he was unwilling to confront them head-on. One after another skeletons climbed up from the ground, making a click sound from their mouths, killing them endlessly, making the scalp tingle. Luo Ye and the 4 resisted the army of beheading and killing skeletons in 4 directions, but faced with the fact that they were chopped up and new skeletons emerged from the ground, they still felt a little powerless. They only expect Lum Weian to crack the formation as soon as possible. Lum Weian looked up and saw the black array flags in the sky constantly flashing dim light. She pondered in her heart, and the speed of the seal on her hand did not slow down. When the last seal was formed, she recited a great light mantra to save the undead. A difficult incantation poured out of her mouth, and the jade bought from 7 directions flashed different rays of light and spread out little by little, and a jade-colored talisman lingered on the periphery of the rays. The 7 colors gradually converged to form a circle of colorful rays of light, which expanded from the center of the array little by little in line with Lum Weian's incantation. The movements of her hands did not stop, and she kept gesturing the posture of the knot, and the void spirit talismans rose into the sky, scattered from all directions, and disappeared after sticking to the surrounding trees. Broken. 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 Then she said 3 words broken in a row, and saw that the colorful glow suddenly became bigger and expanded much faster. When the colorful aperture expanded and approached the army of skeletons emerging from the ground, a series of shrill screams continued to sound, all from the skeletons. With the extension of the colorful aperture, the army of skeletons shrouded in it stopped moving instantly, and circles of colorful light wrapped it. Om, Mengawelichana Mahamudra. The speed of the great bright sutra in Lum Huan's mouth accelerated several times, and the colorful aperture brightened a bit. Then she put her hands and palms together, took a deep breath, took out a round golden stone the size of a finger, and spit out a breath of energy on it. Broken, another whisper. Puchi, suddenly, countless colorful beams shot out from the surrounding trees, engulfing the army of skeletons. The mournful and sad voice gradually disappeared, and wisps of blue smoke emerged from the top of the skeleton's head, running towards the direction of the colorful rays of Sanskrit. Extraordinary. Breaking the formation, the strong old man in the central castle slapped his thigh and laughed. Okay. This girl can really break the formation. This method of breaking the formation is absolutely amazing. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world. BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 244. Lum Huan's colorful circle of light annihilated all the army of skeletons summoned from the formation little by little. Congeal. The black-clothed and masked woman who was standing outside the formation glared, and shot a force of UN force into the formation flags in the air. Lum Huan did not show weakness when she saw this. A black light burst out from her cuff, and stopped in front of the other party's array flags. A black array flag appeared and slowly unfolded. It was also black, except that the black-veiled woman's flags exuded a bloody and sinister aura, while Lum Huan's black flags exuded a soft and calming aura. The encounter between good and evil is naturally a fight. Kill. The black-veiled woman's calm and cold eyes showed a look of fear for the first time. She kept condensing the magic seal into the array flag, and a trace of black UN force drilled out of her body to maintain the array flag casting spells. It turned out to be the dark attribute UNLI. Lum Huan whispered, squinting her eyes, and then quickly condensing the seals. One after another jade-colored talismans with strong UN strength overflowed from her body and disappeared into the formation flag. In addition to gold, wood, water, fire, and soil, there are 9 elements in the law of elements, including wind, ice, thunder, and darkness. Among them, gold, wood, water, fire, and earth are the most common. Thunder and dark attributes are not only rare but mysterious. People with such attributes have basically become a strong party, and they are also the objects that major forces are vying to win. The elders of the 6 sects in the central castle were surprised when they saw the black-clothed and masked woman using the dark energy attribute, and they all thought about it. The eyes of the elders of the Haoyu sect were even brighter. Lum Huan's body is indeed strong, but she is more talented in other aspects. When the time comes, it will be difficult for their Haoyu sect to accept her, but the black-clothed woman is different. The other 5 sects don't like evil cultivation and sorcery, but the Haoyu sect has a branch that specializes in cultivating these capable people. If the black-clothed woman hadn't encountered Lum Huan, a person with a strong talent for fighting, today I am afraid that it will be able to wipe out all the sword masters in the formation. This kind of swordsman is needed even by Xieshiu and the Haoyu section. After the sect's mental skills are not right, they can always change their minds. Focusing on cultivating future achievements may not be worse than Lum Huan. Of course, Lum Huan and the others would not let it go, and would still offer conditions to lure her into entry as usual. Lum Huan's array flag was wrapped with a jade-colored rune, and the light overshadowed the black light and the grand banner. This world has the dark energy attribute but not the light energy attribute, but it is not necessarily that there is no way to deal with it. The profound practice of Buddhism is the nemesis of dark attribute magic. Lum Huan was very irritable for a period of time when she was stuck at the bottleneck of her cultivation in the world of immortality. An ascending monk in the same city suggested her to practice Buddhism to soothe her heart, so she went to Fahya, one of the most powerful forces in the spiritual world, to ask for advice. Unexpectedly, the head teacher of Fahya was a monk she once rescued. When she saw that she was asking for advice, she taught her all the Buddhist teachings except the core Buddhist practice that Fahya could not leak. She is not a Buddhist practitioner, but she has a good understanding of Buddhist practice methods, which is more than enough to deal with the dark magic methods used by women in black and masked. Of course, if she encounters a dark attribute swordsman with a high level of cultivation, even if she uses Buddhism at this time, she will not be able to suppress this evil dark magic technique. The black-clothed woman snorted coldly, and threw her whole body's energy into the array of banners. The black array flags were wrapped by a powerful yin and evil aura, and there was a faint trend of bullying the array flags. Then the array flags spread out and quickly wrapped the array flags. The flag was entangled by the black cloth of the flag, and the jade-colored runes on the flag gradually dimmed. The woman in black showed a faint smile in her eyes. Girl Noah is still amazing, a great national swordsman standing behind her complimented. The black-clothed woman restrained the look in her eyes, and she no longer despised the purple-clothed allure woman in her heart. She had a feeling that the woman opposite Lum Wen could not be her friend in this life, she would be her lifelong rival. An arrogant soldier will lose, she will not necessarily lose. The woman in black pondered for a while and spit out a word in a hoarse voice. She is not a person who refuses to admit defeat. The reason why she disliked Lum Wen before was that she didn't know that she had such a high talent and means of formation. Now that they are evenly matched, she has a very strange feeling, but she can be sure that it is not the killing intent of jealousy. The complimenting man smiled shyly, obviously not expecting Noah to say such a thing. Jiu Yuguan glanced at Noya's face, which was covered by a veil and couldn't see her face clearly. This woman was not someone like Mutan who was scheming but easy to be arrogant. If she was an enemy, it would be very difficult to deal with. In my heart, I couldn't help but secretly rejoice that I invited her here. Even if I can't defeat Lum Wen today, the hatred between the two women is probably over. Lum Wen closed her eyes, instead of continuing to condense the magic seal to transmit UN power like the woman in black. She slowly opened her mouth and recited a cryptic scripture. Every time she recites a sentence, the already dim talisman will light up a little, and after a while, the array flag makes a crisp sound. OM. The jade talisman escaped from the array flag and quickly wrapped the opponent's array flags, and the jade-colored runes followed Lum Wen's scriptures into the array flags. In an instant, the array flags and the array flags both vibrated, as if they were fighting each other. After about a stick of incense, the yin and evil aura emanating from the array flags was dissolved by the jade talisman, and the black light faded away. The masked woman in black couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. Jiu and others showed some disbelief in their eyes. Lum Wen broke Noah's formation. How is this possible? Noah is a genius soul figure in the younger generation of Hewa Kingdom, and she is also a direct descendant of the national teacher. How could she be defeated by Lum Yu's pipe method? Not to mention Jiu and the others, Luo Ye, Sinan and Helian Li on Lum Wen's side all looked surprised. If they were replaced today, they would not be able to break the opponent's formation at all, and they could escape but at the cost of being seriously injured. It's not how strong Noah's cultivation is, but the formation and dark energy magic that she controls are too evil and cunning, and they can't be prevented at all. A few people have heard a little about the cultivation method of Hewokyo. They didn't expect that the first genius girl of Hewokyo would be defeated by Lum Wen today, which is really horrifying. Noah is an extremely decisive person. She took a deep look at Lum Wen with a faint look, remembered her voice and smile, took out a royal wind talisman from the space ring and crushed it before disappearing in the space between heaven and earth. I'm not her opponent for the time being, you can fight on your own. Before she left, she sent a message to Jiu and others. Then a hoarse female voice sounded above the heads of Lum Wen and others, is it Lum Wen? You are qualified to be my opponent, and I look forward to our fight again in the future. When the voice disappeared, there was no woman's breath here. Lum Wen's eyes were as deep as the sea. She looked up at the direction where the black-clothed woman disappeared, and it took a while before she looked back. As soon as the woman in black left, the array flags in the air were taken away by her, and the array that was cracked by Lum Wan collapsed and disappeared in an instant. At the same time, the figures of Gu and others were also exposed in the woods. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 245. When the formation was destroyed and the mysterious black-clothed woman left, Lum Wan looked at Gu and his party with a half-smile. Gu, did you bring someone to give us the jade badge? Gu's face darkened. You must think too highly of yourself. Whether it's tall or not, you'll know after a trick. Lum Wan raised her eyebrows. This scourge must be removed today. Gu also had the same idea and wanted to kill Lum Wan here. He turned to the leaders of the other elite teams of the great powers and said, they have a lot of purple jade cards in their hands, kill them. A few people around him just saw that Noah's formation was broken and had some thoughts of leaving, but now they can't help but become active after hearing Gu's words. Although he was afraid of Sinan and Luo Ye, so many of them were not afraid to unite. Good. Kill. After Gu and his party reached an agreement, they drew their swords and surrounded Lum Wan and others. Lum Yu smoked an arc on his lips and said to the people on his side, snatch all their jade cards. Okay, their people were eager to wait and rushed forward. What about the number of people? They can win even after being besieged by so many monsters in the beast swarm, so it's even more challenging, isn't it? Soon, the people on both sides were fighting together, and the people on Lum Wan's side were basically 1-on-2 or 1-on-3. Suddenly, Gu's figure appeared in front of her, and a strong palm wind rushed towards her face. Lum Wan's eyes turned cold, and she quickly moved away to avoid Gu's sneak attack. That's what you are capable of. Humph, it's enough to kill you. Gu snorted coldly, with a red longsword in his hand. The machete that he used the most easily and the strongest broke out of contact with him last time, and he didn't take it with him when he left, so he had to use a spare longsword as a weapon as a last resort. Have you put away my machete? He still wanted to get the holy weapon back. Lum Wan raised her lips and smiled, took out 2 dark golden machetes from the space ring and threw them at Gu. Give it back to you, don't say that this girl is greedy for your broken things. Gu took the machete carefully with a surprised look on her face, and her face darkened instantly after injecting UN force. There is no metallic aura in my holy artifact. Are you doing the hands and feet? He said. How could Lum Wan return the machete to him so kindly? It turned out that he had taken all the metal in the machete away. Lum Wan smiled lightly and said, what kind of metallic aura? You have a delusional disorder. Naturally, she couldn't tell him about her natal magic weapon because his machete inspired the talent for devouring, and there was a reflection formation here. Maybe the elders of the 6 major sects were watching their every move, so she didn't want to expose too much. You're deceiving people too much. Gu couldn't hide the evil in his eyes. He seldom had such a strong killing intent towards others. He injected the UN force in his body into the red longsword in his hand, and squinted his eyes and swung down at Lum Wan. A huge light and shadow condensed from mid-air. Not far from Lum Wan's head, the huge sword chi light and shadow suddenly dispersed into 1,000 sword lights, and shot out from all directions, trying to surround and kill her. Lum Wan made a move, and a huge golden sword light erupted from under her feet, and when it fell in front of her, the huge sword turned into 10 golden flying swords. Fijian formed a circle and protected Lum Wan in it. Disperse. As soon as she finished speaking, the 10 flying swords spun rapidly. A streak of golden sword light that broke through the sky shot out from the flying sword, and also turned into 1,000 sword lights to meet Gu's sword energy. Boom, thousands of sword lights met, and a loud noise broke out, and the earth trembled. The dazzling light made the swordsmen present couldn't help but close their eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that both Lum Wan and Gu were injured by each other's sword light and took a step back. There was blood on Lum Wan's lips, Gu's clothes were ragged, and his body was cut by sword energy in many places. I really underestimate you. This was the first time that Jiyu had been so embarrassed when she was fighting against someone. Lum Wen raised her eyebrows, each other. She really underestimated Jiyu before. Just now, he was the one who slashed with all his strength, but with the might of the sword sect, she fought with all her strength and suffered internal injuries. The most important thing is that Jiyu hasn't played his whole cards yet. She had to admire in her heart that Jiyu was indeed an elite disciple of a superpower, both in combat power and adaptability. Today I'm going to get rid of you. Jiyu's eyes burst out with a killing intent that was bound to be won. Lum Wen chuckled, smiling like a flower. What you said is exactly what I thought. Bingji shuddered when she saw this look in her eyes. The more beautiful the little master smiled like this, the more she was going to go crazy. He waved his wings and quickly moved away from Lum Wen's shoulders to avoid being affected. Mo Yan also knew Lum Wen's disposition very well. He stretched out his claws and grabbed the little white snake hanging from her wrist and moved away from it. Meow Meow struggled unhappily, and Nyanyo's voice sounded, "Boss Mo, why are you holding me? I'm going to accompany the master." Meow Meow also successfully entered the 6th rank a few days ago because of swallowing a lot of 6th order monster beast crystal cores. Even Mo Yan was shocked by such a mutant talent. "It's time for you to practice." Mo Yan glanced at Meow Meow and threw her into the battle circle. Junior and middle level human swordsmen of the Sword Sovereign are your goal. If you can't kill 10 of them, don't eat crystal cores today. Meow Meow's cultivation is improving too fast, and if he does not rely on battle to consolidate his strength, he will definitely leave drawbacks in the future. "Master, Boss Mo bullied me." Meow Meow looked at Lum Wen with tears in her eyes and complained. Lum Wen twitched the corners of her mouth. Although she felt distressed for Meow Meow, she couldn't indulge her. "You really should rely on fighting to make up for your unstable cultivation. Mo Yan is for your own good." Mo Yan heard that Lum Wen did not indulge Meow Meow as before, and there was a trace of satisfaction in his deep eyes. Meow Meow glared at Mo Yan and said pitifully, "Then if I kill more than 10 Sword Emperor human sword masters, will there be any reward?" "Killing one will reward you with 2 tier 6 monster beast crystal cores and 1 tier 3 pill." Lum Wen waved his hand while battling against Jiyu. Meow Meow cheered when she heard such a reward, and with a flick of the snake's tail, her body suddenly changed from the thickness of her fingers to a giant python more than 10 meters long, and it bit towards the locked target with its big mouth. Lum Wen's generosity made Bingji completely speechless. The owner just doted on this little female snake too much. Seeing Meow Meow's behavior again, he couldn't help but stroke his forehead. Why are the little beauties around him so violent? Can you still enjoy it? Jiyu and Lum Wen slammed into the bottom with sword energy, and he was shocked to find that this woman's Yuan Li was much purer than his own. The mellowness of her body's Yuan force is probably not much less than his, so it seemed impossible for him to kill Lum Wen in a war of attrition. He clenched the long sword tightly, took a deep breath, his eyes revealed a determination, and took out a sealed talisman from the space ring. Lum Wen carefully glanced at the talisman with a mysterious ancient atmosphere in his hand, thinking, Jiyu's trump card is about to be revealed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world. BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 246. Jiyu gritted his teeth and endured the reluctance in his heart, and threw the talisman in his hand upwards, muttering a few words in his mouth, and a red light flew from his sleeve and disappeared into the talisman. In an instant, the talisman made a humming sound, struggled in the air, a beam of yellow light lit up, and the entire space shook. What is this? A man behind Jiyu asked. Jiyu didn't answer his companions, and stared deeply at the talisman that the yellow light was growing in the sky. Lum Wan felt a distant and powerful aura coming from the talisman, with a hint of coercion, as if something was about to break out of the cocoon. There used to be a dense layer of intricate spell seals on top of the rune. At this time, after Jiu's red light penetrated, it gradually peeled off, the black rune became lighter and thinner, and finally disappeared into the air as dust. Boom, several thunders sounded in the sky, and the originally bright sky was covered with dark clouds. A depressing heart palpitations instantly spread throughout the space. The expressions of Sinan and others changed. What is this? The breath emanating from this talisman actually made them feel a sense of death, and their hearts sank. Even the people on Jiu's side had a bad premonition. Jiu, what are you? Jiu also had an indescribable palpitation in his heart. He frowned and said, "This is the high-level talisman that my grandfather gave me. It is said that killing sword masters under sword master is no problem." The companions behind him endured the fear and showed joy in their eyes. If Jiu's talisman could kill Sinan and others, they wouldn't have to fight to death or be seriously injured. Although the number of the other side is not as large as them, but after fighting for a while, more than half of the people on their side have been killed or injured. Roar! A startling roar resounded through the sky, and then a huge yellow behemoth broke the seal of the talisman and drilled out. Ninth Order Earth-type Flood Dragon Demon Soul, everyone be careful. Luoya immediately discovered what was above his head, and he hurriedly led everyone back a distance. That flood dragon has been sealed for countless years, and this time it was freed from the talisman and raised its head happily and roared a few times. Jiao has 4 sharp claws under his body, and 2 raised bags on his head. If he didn't die back then and became a demon spirit, he would have already soared into a dragon now. "Did you let me out?" The khaki-colored giant Jiao squinted at Jiu below with half-squinted eyes, but he couldn't see his anger. Jiu did not expect that a 9th Order Flood Dragon Demon Soul was sealed in the talisman. No wonder his grandfather asked him to use it carefully. It is indeed true that he could kill the sword master under the sword. It was done by the junior. Jiu's attitude was quite sincere. After all, although the other party was the soul of the talisman released by himself, it was normal for him to call him senior. Xiaolong shook his body, a wicked look flashed in his eyes, and laughed loudly. "Okay, very good." Jiu's heart was overjoyed, but she didn't show it on her face. Just as she was thinking about how to use the giant flood dragon to kill Lum Wan and the others, a cold aura suddenly approached. As soon as he raised his head, he saw the huge head of the giant Jiao being under heavy pressure. It was only a few breaths from when Xiaolong spoke to when Jiu was sucked in, and no one could understand what was going on. Didn't Jiu release this Xiaolong? Why was the first person to swallow it turned out to be Jiu? This is the true portrayal of everyone including Lum Wan. Ah! Why, you dare to kill the Lord? Jiu was swallowed half of his body by the giant Xiao, and the weak voice came from the Jiao's body. Xiaolong snorted coldly, and swallowed Jiu in one gulp. "You carry that smelly old man's breath on your body, it must be his bloodline. When he killed me and sealed me, I swore in my heart to destroy it. Kill him and his descendants, and use you as a memorial today." You. Jiu's voice was so small that it was no longer audible, thinking that it had turned into food for ghosts. The faces of Jiu and his group changed drastically, and they fled in all directions without anyone telling Chi to step forward. This flood dragon has to kill even its master, and it is even easier to kill them. Looking at the constantly fleeing crowd, Xiaolong's eyes showed a bit of contempt. This is how these human beings are, timid and afraid of death, and insidious and cunning. His body was shocked, and he took a few breaths in the direction of escape, and the sword masters who were fleeing fell into his mouth. Although Xiaolong is a demon spirit, it can devour human cultivators to replenish his true energy. After all, after being sealed for so long, his soul power is also very weak. "Mo Yan, what should we do?" Lum Wan looked at the Xiaolong not far away with fear. This is a genuine ninth-order demon soul. Even if they are weak at present, they are not their opponents. Mo Yan's deep and secluded eyes not only did not show any worry, but a gleam of light flashed. This dragon's demon soul is a great supplement. If he can devour it and refine it, his cultivation will definitely recover a lot. Lum Wan couldn't help but twitch the corners of her mouth. The ninth-order demon soul must be filled. But you can only watch it when you are making up. Can you still catch it and eat it? Do you have a solution? Lum Wan asked while pursing his glossy lips when he saw his dark eyes shining. Mo Yan pondered for a moment and said, "You lead him to a place where there is no one, and I have a way to deal with him." Lum Wan still believed in Mo Yan very much, and after seeing the Jiaolong demon soul swallowing Jiyu's group, she put her eyes on them with an unfinished look. Being stared at by a chilling gaze, Sinan and the others couldn't help but feel an irresistible feeling in their hearts. This is the look in the eyes of the hunter staring at the prey, and everyone smiled bitterly in their hearts. I didn't expect that the recent hunting of monsters has now become a delicious food in the eyes of monsters. The strength is barely enough for me to recover a layer of skill. Bad luck. Jiaolong looked at Luoye and the others with disgust, as if he had already regarded it as the food he was about to eat. Sinan and others have a black line, and you are unlucky to dislike you. Don't eat us. Lum Wan caught the heat in Jiaolong's eyes. Even if he disliked them, he would not let them go. Fight. Sinan also found the killing intent in Jiaolong's eyes. He endured his numb scalp and said to the crowd, "Either he died or we died, let's fight." Luoye also thought so in his heart. Okay. The others didn't want to die like this, and they all took out their weapons and injected their energy into them, and they all swung towards the cocky yellow giant flood dragon in mid-air. The colorful sword lights gathered together to form a giant axe, which combined the power of the sword masters present and slashed towards Jiaolong's head. Jiaolong's eyes showed a bit of playfulness, and he said, "Beyond your own ability." Then he raised his tail and swept hard, and the mighty axe was easily defeated. Luoye, Sinan and other high-level sword emperors were shaken and vomited blood. Just one move of the giant flood dragon gave them a profound lesson, which also indicated that their lives might not be guaranteed. They are not reconciled, but there is nothing they can do. Who makes them less powerful than Zhu Qiao? Just when everyone was in despair, Lum Wan took out a mysterious ice jade box from the space ring, opened and closed it to Jiaolong, and said provocatively, "Follow if you want." After speaking, he turned around and flew towards the distant jungle without looking back, and disappeared immediately. Jiaolong's eyes showed a trace of madness and greed. He ignored Sinan and the others with a roar, and followed Lum Wan's direction. "My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant." Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 247. Lum Wan led the giant Jiao's demon spirit towards the depths of the forest. The figure of one person and one Jiao quickly disappeared in front of everyone. Yan'er, the blood on Lum Yuebai's lips deepened, and he stood up in pain and chased in that direction. Ye King Han trembled in his heart, took out a pill, took it and followed Lum Yuebai's footsteps. Mu Yan, he thought that nothing would happen. Lum Wan is really crazy. Luoli looked anxious. She was a weak woman who led the dragon away and let us escape to death, and she didn't ask us if we wanted to. Regardless of his injuries, he said angrily and chased after him. When others heard his words, they couldn't help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Is Lum Wan a weak woman? Luoli is blind. Let's go to Luoye's injuries were few and far between, and Lum Wan's actions just now shocked him too deeply. Sinan's handsome face was slightly pale, and her eyes were complicated and incomprehensible. Lum Wan sacrificed herself to save them. Could it be that she was so confident that she would not be swallowed up by the evil Qiao? It is a lie to say that it is not shaken. Helian Li wiped the blood from his mouth with his hand and spit out a mouthful of blood. Even though he was a little embarrassed at this time, he still had a dashing and romantic look on his face. But why does my heart feel warm? Ling Fei Yang and others were also shocked by Lu Muan's actions. Why is she so stupid? Everyone now has a realization in their hearts. In order to save them, Lu Muan took the risk to lure the evil Jiao Dragon away. This behavior was stupid and crazy, but it made them unable to keep her in their hearts at this moment. Lu Muan didn't know that her actions had already entered the hearts of those arrogant sons, and from now on, she would be regarded as a close friend of life and death, and she was desperately fleeing at this moment. Mo Yan, are you coming? Lu Muan's speed was full at this time, and he used his spiritual power and Shunbu together, but the Jiaolong behind him chased after him tightly. Damn, his speed is too fast. Come on, rush in this direction. Mo Yan looked back at Jiaolong, who was about to catch up, and said indifferently. Bingji gave him a sneaky glance. Boss Mo is trying to kill them. Is the ninth order monster so easy to mess with? Lu Muan bit her lip, and while running away, she quickly formed the seal, and the natal magic weapon flew out of her body and stabbed towards the evil dragon behind. Clang! As soon as the golden giant sword approached Jiaolong, he roared and knocked it to the ground. Taking advantage of these few breaths of time, Lu Muan accelerated with the limit of his body. When he saw a layer of white mist in the deep forest in front of him, his eyes lit up and he burrowed in. The natal magic weapon that fell to the ground turned into a streamer and flew into the white fog. The spirit of the flood dragon stopped in front of Bai Wu, staring at Bai Wu angrily. He always felt that there was something he was afraid of in the white mist, and it might even kill him. If he lost the ghost again, he would really be finished. But when he thought of the soul tree in the hand of the human woman, his heart could not be calm. That is a god-level spiritual tree, which is exactly what he needs most at the moment. If he gets the soul cultivation wood and attaches his soul to it for nourishment, it won't take long for him to recover to the peak strength of the 9th rank, and then it will be perfect to find a Jiaolong with good talent to seize the house. Begging for wealth and danger, Jiao's eyes showed sternness, and he also got into the white mist. Center Castle. The elders of the 6 major sects took all the previous scenes into their eyes, and they all showed shock. She entered the 2nd-class danger zone. An elder squeezed a sweat. Seeing Lu Muan, who was almost chased by the evil dragon, rushed into the 2nd-class danger zone, the hearts of the elders were relieved. It could be seen that after the Jiaolong wandered for a while and chased in, the heart lifted up again involuntarily. I hope this girl can escape this catastrophe, said a kind-faced Yaozong elder. The sturdy elder of the 8 extreme sect sighed, this girl is really stupid. Although he said Lu Muan was stupid, the admiration in his eyes did not hide. This girl has a very good character. If she was alive, he would find a way to deceive her to the sect. This girl is not afraid of danger, sacrifices herself to save others, has a good character, and has an excellent talent. It's a pity, the elder of Yulingzong sighed and shook his head. Not to mention that this girl rushed into the 2nd-class danger zone rashly, even the 9th order demon spirit rushed in, she was afraid that it would be dangerous. The other elders regretted each other, and even the wise elder of the Tianji Palace had a trace of regret in his eyes. After entering the 2nd-class danger zone, the formation of the game space will not be able to spy on it, everything depends on fate. Several people sighed and regretted, but did not notice that the man in white sitting behind him quietly disappeared into the central castle. Lu Mubai and the others chased towards the breath of one person and one dragon, but they lost their way when they reached Bai Wu. What is this? Yunzimo frowned and looked at the white fog in front of him. No matter what it is, let's talk about it first. Lu Mubai was anxious and walked in towards Bai Wu. Yunlan and the others did not hesitate, and followed him into the white fog. Luoli and the others who arrived later knew that this was a 2nd-class danger zone, but they broke in without hesitation. But an astonishing scene happened. A group of people went around in the white fog for a few times and returned to the forest where they came from. Lu Mubai and others reluctantly went around for a few more times, but the result was still the same. Master Luo, do you know why we can't get in? Lu Mubai turned to look at Luo Ye with a worried look on his face. Luo Ye was the strongest among their group of people, also had the talent for divination, and had the richest knowledge. Luo Ye raised one hand and pinched it, his frowning brows furrowed deeper, and after a while, he sighed and said, "This white mist is the entrance to the second-class danger zone. It can block mental strength and vitality, it also has a psychedelic effect, and you can't get in without chance. Brother, you can figure out whether she is alive or not." Luo Li was nervous. Luo Ye thought about it and asked, "Do you have Lum Weian's token on your body?" "I have a bunch of beads from my cousin here." Ling Fei Yang quickly took the beads from his hand and handed them over, the sadness in his eyes could not be concealed. Luo Ye took the bead and snorted, and his fingers kept counting. After a while, he breathed a sigh of relief. She is still alive. Hearing Luo Ye's words, others couldn't help but ignite a glimmer of hope that Lum Weian, that crazy woman, would not die so easily. Lum Weian, who broke into the second-level danger zone, didn't know that a group of people outside were worried about her safety. She was in a deep pool and confronted the evil flood dragon demon spirit who had found her breath and caught up. "Human, hand over the soul tree in your hands, and I will spare your life." As soon as Jiao Long found Lum Weian, he couldn't help but threaten. He always felt that there was an aura that made him tremble, and he just wanted to get the soul tree and leave here. Lum Weian didn't run away anymore, turned his head and raised a slight arc on his lips. "What if I don't? My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant." Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 248. What if I don't? Evil Jiao was furious when he heard Lum Weian's words. He had been imprisoned in the talisman for so many years, and he had long developed a great resentment towards human beings. "Humph, after I swallow you, I will naturally get the soul-raising wood." Lum Weian raised her eyebrows. "It doesn't look like you're stupid." In the sea of knowledge, he kept urging Mo Yan, "Hurry up, he's going to go crazy." As soon as Mo Yan reached the deep pool, he jumped off Lum Weian's shoulder, and his figure kept flashing around. Lum Weian felt his demon power fluctuate, but he didn't know what he was going to do. "Okay." Mo Yan dodged and appeared behind evil Jiao. Lum Weian squinted slightly, and continued to provoke the evil dragon, "Swallow your stomach? Is it even worthy of your big reptile? You damn despicable human, I must tear you to pieces today." Evil flood dragon was murderous, and he hated the most who said he was a big reptile. The human who sealed him used to arrogantly said that he was a big reptile, and the old and new hatred ignited at the slightest. "Little master, you have completely angered him, we are finished." Bing Ji had transformed into the main body Bing Luan at this time. Although he was a little afraid of death, he did not leave Lum Weian's side. Lum Weian saw the evil Jiao opened its mouth and sprayed a cloud of cocky smoke at her. She immediately closed her senses and held her breath. Using Shun View, he quickly escaped from the range of the yellow fog. With a wave of the golden longsword from his hand, a hurricane-piercing sword energy swept away. The evil Jiao snorted coldly, and with a few claws, he tore apart Lum Weian's sword energy. At this moment, Mo Yan, who had been lurking behind the evil flood dragon, suddenly became countless times bigger. The cluster of flames flew out of Mo Yan's body and instantly wrapped the evil dragon in it, and then heard the burning sound of Pu-Chi. Ah! It turned out to be a fire of the netherworld. The evil flood dragon's demon spirit was scorched and shrunk into a small earth-yellow ball of light, and couldn't help begging for mercy, "Don't burn me, ah! Please forgive me, I will do it. Anything is fine." Unexpectedly, the evil Jiao escaped from the talisman and encountered a monster with a ghostly fire. This is the rhythm that God wants to destroy him. There was no wave in Mo Yan's eyes, and he was extremely cold. "You have done many evils and harmed many people and monsters in your lifetime. The monster spirit is full of resentment, leaving you is the root of the disaster." Lum Weian nodded in agreement. I can't let him go. This evil dragon's demon spirit carries a bloody suffocating aura, which shows that he made a lot of slaughter before his death, and now he has even more resentment towards human beings in his heart. What? Hearing the shrill screams of the evil flood dragon, Lum Wan thoughtfully looked at the azure flame with a dim light that enveloped him. Netherfire represents the messenger of hell, the flame that can burn all souls, and is the god-level flame for dealing with evil forces. Lum Wan and Bingji were surprised that the spiritual fire in Mo Yan's body turned out to be a ghost fire. No wonder he was so confident in dealing with the evil Xiao. Seeing that the yellow ball of light became less and less, Mo Yan opened his mouth and sucked, and the ball of light was swallowed by him. That evil dragon was thinking about swallowing people or monsters all day. I'm afraid he didn't expect his monster spirit to be swallowed by you. This is really the cycle of heaven and karma. Lum Wan saw the blue flame in the air and the ball of light being destroyed. Mo Yan swallowed his stomach and smiled slightly. The soul-devouring beast's strongest natural talent is the fire of the nether, which devours all souls. It's really strong. It's no wonder that Mo Yan has been dragging his ass all day long. Lum Wan only now knows that he really has the capital to drag him. But I have to say that she was very wise when she photographed Mo Yan, and she found a treasure. After Mo Yan swallowed the evil dragon, a surging power burst out from the demon mansion. His eyes were pale. I'm going to retreat for a while, be careful yourself. Because that soul power is a ninth order monster, it is very powerful. If he can't refine and absorb it in time, it will inevitably cause hidden dangers to his body. Lum Wan is also aware of this. Well, you can go to retreat in the spiritual pet ring. Mo Yan nodded, turned into a black light and got into the pet ring on Lum Wan's hand. Lum Wan looked around the surroundings and suddenly felt a chilling sense of crisis. As soon as Mo Yan entered the spirit beast ring, she fell into a state of deep sleep and cultivation. She immediately said to Bingji, "Let's get out of here quickly." Bingji also instinctively felt a danger approaching, and when Lum Wan jumped on his back, he flapped his wings and flew high. Who knows about mutagenesis? A water column with majestic pressure erupted from the bottom of the deep pool and sprayed straight onto Bingji's body. Although his figure was flexible, he couldn't avoid it because of the gap in his cultivation. Push. Then, a water column jumped out from the front of the ice halberd and spurted it from the front. He was able to avoid it but was affected by the power of the water column. After a while, another jet of water sprayed out from behind. Crack. Lum Wan heard the sound of the broken bones on Bingji's body. Her eyes were cold. She turned around and concentrated her whole body's spiritual power on the natal magic weapon, and slashed at the water column behind. 2/3 of the bones of Bingji's body were broken, and he couldn't bear to fall toward the deep pool. Before he fell into a coma, he used the last strength of his body to throw Lum Wan out of the shrouded range of the deep pool's power. He said weakly, "Master, run. You must live." Then his body slammed into the deep pool, and was quickly dragged into the bottom of the pool by a force emanating from below. Lum Wan's heart seemed to be stabbed by something. This stinky bird was so afraid of death that she threw her out of the shrouded range of that power regardless of her life. But why did she leave him behind? She and they are all companions, life and death. I'm going to save Bingji. If you don't want to go, leave first. Mo Yan fell into a deep sleep state due to the power of the evil flood dragon. Naturally, it was impossible for him to leave. She said this to the cannibal King Vine King and Meow Meow, and she would not force them to face danger together. Where the master goes, Meow Meow will go, the master will live with Meow Meow, and the master will die with Meow Meow. Meow Meow was wrapped around Lum Wan's wrist, but she was extremely firm. The man-eating Bloodthorn Vine King also turned into a wooden bracelet and attached it to Lum Wan's other wrist. Blood is willing to follow the master and share life and death. The fact that the master can save the ice halberd regardless of life and death shows that she truly regards these spiritual pets as a companion, and he has a surging feeling in his heart. Such a master is worthy of his eternal follow, life and death. Lum Wen stood on the top of a high mountain, and the warmth in his heart flowed little by little. Okay, we are companions in life and death. I believe that if Mo Yan is awake, she will definitely support her approach. She tapped her toes, flew down from the top of the high mountain, and plunged into the deep pool. Just as soon as it fell into the pool, it was pulled by an invisible force below and pulled into the bottom of the pool. When Lum Wen was pulled into the bottom of the pool, a handsome man in white appeared at the edge of the pool. There was a sinister and cold arc on his lips. Whoever dared to move his woman, he would destroy anyone. Without any hesitation, the man in white jumped into the pool, and was also pulled into the bottom of the pool by that invisible force. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 249. Lum Wen was pulled by that invisible force and fell to the bottom of the pool. When it fell to the end, she saw the unconscious Bingji lying on a large rock, with a few thick purple-black tentacles wrapped around his body. Each of those tentacles has countless suckers, and at this time, they are using the ice halberd as a big meal to be sucked. Lum Wen exuded a coldness all over his body, urging the magic weapon of his life to transform into a sword array and slash towards those purple-black tentacles. The natal magic weapon refined by Tianhan Golden Marrow is indeed powerful, but at present it is only equivalent to a middle-grade holy weapon, which has not yet evolved, so only 1/3 of the tentacles are cut off. Suddenly, the water at the bottom of the pool stirred frantically, and a pair of fierce white eyes suddenly opened from the darkness. He hasn't been hurt for many years, and this humble human dared to cut him with a sword. He waved a few idle tentacles constantly. The tentacles placed on the ice halberd did not retract, but he also stopped the action of preparing to absorb the demon essence. Lum Wen squinted his eyes, a layer of purple gold flames overflowed from his body, and the flames turned into lotus flowers and fell away, lightly landing on the 10 golden flying swords. The flying sword fused with the purple gold spirit fire flickered with golden light, and the outside was covered with a layer of light purple, which seemed to have a strange feeling for no reason. 9 Palaces sword art formation. Lum Wen continued to form seals, and when the last seal was formed, she snorted softly. The flying sword surrounding the monster immediately revolved to form a Zhigong situation. The monster's eyes were bigger than buckets, and the white ones were a little terrifying. When he saw Lum Wen's sword formation, his eyes were slightly surprised, and his voice was hoarse. Human, your sword formation is good, but it's a pity that you cultivated it. Too low, what can I do? Don't you know if you try? Lum Wen sneered. The monster opposite is a mutant octopus monster at the peak of the 8th order, with rough skin and thick flesh, but the sword formation with the purple gold spirit fire can hurt him. Humph, the octopus monster snorted coldly, and a few thick tentacles emerged from below and grabbed the 10 flying swords. Lum Wen's eyes were slightly chilled. Transformation. As soon as she finished speaking, the 10 flying swords seemed to be alive. Whenever the tentacles were about to be caught, they would flexibly dodge, and the swords brushed the tentacles in the opposite direction. Each golden sword carries a cluster of purple gold spirit fire, so every time the blade and the tentacle pass by, the purple gold spirit fire will jump and burn on the tentacle. Ah, the octopus monster felt a piercing pain coming from his tentacles, and he looked at the 10 flying swords with fear. Zhijian spirit fire, you damned human being has such a spirit fire. I don't know who will die in the end. Lum Wen laughed sarcastically, stepping quickly to avoid the tentacles that the octopus waved over with majestic demonic power. The octopus monster is huge and not as flexible as Lum Wen and her flying sword. His eyes showed a bit of deep thought, and his big white eyes closed. Lum Wen suddenly felt a chill all over her body, and her heart palpitations kept coming. She thought badly. She jumped away from a tentacle, and suddenly saw a gap in the octopus monster's forehead, trembled, and a big blood-stained eye opened instantly. Buzz. An invisible sound wave came out from the big eyes of the octopus monster. Although Lum Wan was ready to wrap his spiritual consciousness around the core of the sea of consciousness, he was still affected and attacked. Her headache was about to crack, she couldn't help squatting on the ground holding her head, with a trace of blood in her black eyes. The most powerful of the octopus monster mutation skills is the mental attack. As soon as his third eye is opened, as long as the mental strength does not reach the level of the ninth order monster, it will be stimulated into an idiot. Lum Wan's sea of knowledge seemed to be pierced by countless needles. She didn't underestimate the octopus monster, but she didn't expect that his most powerful attack would be a mental attack. At this time, her mental power was still in a deep sleep. Although she would not become an idiot if she was attacked, she had already lost her combat power. And that trace of spiritual power with red light was still rushing towards her sea of consciousness, and she clenched her hands tightly to endure the pain like 10,000 needles piercing her brain. The desire to survive is unstoppable, she can't just die like this. Suddenly, a warm light in the sea of consciousness was softly like a spring breeze blowing, and the red spiritual force that plunged into the sea of knowledge turned into a sharp needle that was annihilated. A glazed light swept out from her sea of consciousness, and she fell into a coma. Meow meow and Shue kept slapping her wrist nervously, and Chuanyan hoped that the little master would wake up. But Lum Wan's long and dense black eyelashes were tightly closed, her face was peaceful, her body curled up, and layers of glazed filaments wrapped her. The octopus monster didn't expect that his mental attack would fail. Looking at the sleeping woman who seemed to be wrapped in silkworm chrysalis, he had a bad premonition. The thick purple-black tentacles that hurriedly stretched out, more than half of them gathered demon power and slapped them away, trying to penetrate her body. But as soon as the tentacles with demonic power touched the glass-colored pupa, they were dissolved invisible, and the tentacles that stuck to him like a bottomless pit began to frantically absorb his demonic power. He was suddenly startled, and slapped the glass-colored chrysalis hard, trying to break free. Suddenly, a dazzling red-gold light swept down from above, and his tentacles wrapped around Lum Wan were cut off. "Ah!" Octopus screamed in pain, "who dares to attack me?" Then he saw a man in white with an outstanding figure and a handsome appearance that was not like a mortal person appeared beside the chrysalis that the woman had turned into. "Damn you!" The man's voice was filled with endless chills. The cold color in the man's eyes seemed to condense this deep pool into countless frosts, and he did exactly that. He held Lum Wan in his arms, and the golden longsword in his hand instantly turned dark blue. When UN force was injected, the blue sword body turned into countless blue starlights that covered the entire deep pool. The octopus monster found that he couldn't feel the other party's cultivation, and an aura of death enveloped him. He quickly stretched out the tentacles wrapped around Bingluan's body, turned around and swam toward the bottom of the pool with a black hole swimming at a fast speed. Amazing! Die! The man in white had a calm expression, reaching out and gently shaking his palm in the direction in which the octopus monster escaped. The water in the deep pool condensed into frost at an alarming speed, and the octopus slammed into the already frozen hole. He turned his head to look at the man in white in horror. Just as he was about to explode some of his tentacles to escape, he suddenly found that all the water in this space had turned into ice. He looked down at his body in disbelief, and watched himself become an ice sculpture with his own eyes. Meow Meow and Shue couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene, and shrank their necks and leaned on Lum Wan's wrist. The man in white looked down at the woman who was wrapped in layers of glass chrysalis in his arms. The coldness in his eyes dissipated and turned into a pool of warm colors. "Fortunately, she is fine." Immediately, he rolled up the ice halberd on the ground and the frozen octopus monster, and as soon as his mind moved, he hugged Lum Wan and disappeared into the deep pool. "My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly Evil Wife is Too Arrogant Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 250. After Lum Wan fell into a coma, she felt that she was surrounded by a layer of warm light, which made her not want to wake up immediately. The spiritual power that was originally dormant in the sea of consciousness overflowed little by little, turning into glazed light spots scattered in her sea of consciousness. The sea of spiritual power, which was about to be exhausted, became active in an instant, and the waves of spiritual power were constantly flapping and tumbling happily. After a while, the area of her sea of consciousness gradually expanded, and finally stopped when it more than doubled. The man in white took Lum Wan out of the deep pool and carried him to a clean flat ground. After the layer of glazed chrysalis gradually faded away, he pursed his thin lips and reached out to remove her clothes. He took out a red robe of his own from the space ring without any distractions as much as possible and put it on her. His hand caressed her delicate and alluring face, her eyes were dyed with joyful love, and her palms instantly dried her wet hair with a trace of fire energy. He held her in his arms and kissed her forehead. Looking down at the ice bracelet she was wearing, with a smile in his eyes, he cut off the connection between himself and the ice bracelet. "Woman, you can only be mine at any time," he whispered in her ear. When he found that the spiritual power in Lum Wan's sea of consciousness was constantly changing, a charming arc appeared on the man's lips. Suddenly, a bird with orange feathers flew from a distance and landed on the man's head. "Master, if you don't go back, your substitute will be discovered." The man kissed Lum Wan's forehead again with nostalgia, and his voice was full of affection. "Woman, we will meet again soon. Take care." After he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a halo of ice covered Lumu's smoke. The orange bird looked down at the stunning beauty with her eyes closed on the ground, and couldn't help showing a bit of curiosity in her eyes. It turns out that this is the woman the master is thinking of. A beauty indeed. The man got up and stroked Kinja's white clothes, and disappeared into the forest with an orange bird. In the central castle, the elders of the 6 major sects are still observing a few people who performed well in this competition, discussing a few words from time to time. After the man in white returned to the room, the man who had been sitting in the last row with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. This move was not even noticed by the wise old man in white shirt from Tianji Palace. A day later, when the spiritual force in the sea of consciousness stabilized, Lum Wan gradually opened his eyes. What caught her eye was a layer of ice cover emitting blue light protecting her body. After sensing that she was awake, the blue light instantly turned into countless blue dots and disappeared in front of her eyes. She sat up and rubbed her brows, and when she looked down, she saw that she was wearing a man's red robe, and she couldn't help but move. When she was sleeping before, she seemed to hear a nice and magnetic clear male voice speaking in her ear, which didn't seem to be an illusion. Reaching out and tying her hair with a ribbon at will, she raised her hand and sniffed the red clothes on her body. "Mingxiu," she whispered inexplicably. Could it be that Mingxiu is also a person from a big country participating in this competition? But judging from his relationship with the Underworld Union Chamber of Commerce, it shouldn't be. Master, you finally woke up," Mia Meow's excited voice came while thinking. She reached out and touched Mia Meow's head, looked at the octopus monster that had been frozen into an ice sculpture not far away, and asked, "What's going on?" Meow Meow wrapped around her wrist and rubbed it affectionately, and said Nuanuoli, before the master was affected by the mental attack of that octopus monster and fell asleep, and then. Lum Wan frowned slightly after listening to Mia Meow's remarks about what happened after she fell into a coma. "Are you sure that person is wearing white clothes? That man is not only dressed in white, but also looks like an exiled immortal." Mia Meow's eyes flashed with stars, "But I always feel that he has a familiar smell, but I am sure I have never seen him." Lum Wan's brows stretched out. Meow Meow had been in contact with Mingxiu when he was still a Jiaodan, and it was normal for him to be familiar with the smell on his body, but why did the evildoer wear white clothes? Still a warm and exalted temperament? Is it possible? Blood and Blood also popped out of his head and said, Master, that man is too strong. He just used Li to freeze the entire deep pool into ice. That 8th order octopus monster was killed by him in one round. Speaking of this, he still has some lingering fears, and it is fortunate that the man is the master's friend. Lu Muan nodded. He has always been very strong. He added in his heart that the monster is still very mysterious. She got up and changed the red clothes on her body into her own clothes. After thinking about it, she still put the red clothes into the space ring. Then she walked to the comatose Bingji, took out a bottle of medicinal elixir and poured it into him, wrapping a layer of green mist around her hands and putting it on Bingji to repair his broken bones. About an hour later, Lu Muan withdrew his hands and sat on the ground to recover. This time, it was a blessing in disguise. The mental power she wanted to awaken by borrowing the soul cultivating wood was awakened more than half a year earlier than expected, and the sea of knowledge was also expanded by half. Her mental strength now also exceeds that of the sword master of the sword sect. Suddenly, a coolness came from her wrist. At this moment, she could clearly feel the connection with the ice bracelet on her hand. The invisible outsider's breath that had been hidden before had disappeared. The ice bracelet expressed a kind of joy as if she liked her very much, and there was also some information about the ice bracelet in her sea of knowledge. The dragon and phoenix bracelets were derived from the earth thousands of years ago. The bracelets are made of god-level spiritual objects. They are the most treasures in the world. They are divided into two, a dragon and a phoenix. They are worn by the male and female masters who are in harmony with each other. Lu Muan gently rubbed the ice blue table in her hands, and the talent she possessed was also reflected in her sea of knowledge. Phoenix God Bracelet, a playful smile appeared on her lips. It turns out that it can really repair injuries, expel toxins, and give birth to spirit herbs. It is indeed a treasure. I couldn't help but reflect a tall and straight red figure in my mind. Where are you, Mingxiu? Bingji slowly opened his eyes and looked at Lu Muan in surprise. Master, we are still alive. Lu Muan said with a smile, don't worry, I won't die. The master jumped into that deep pool to save you and was seriously injured. You stinkbird is an idiot. Meow Meow stretched out her little head and glared at Bingji. Bingji's eyes were full of emotion, and he said why he was still alive. The broken bones in his body were not only connected, but also increased in strength. It turned out that the master saved him. Master, Bingji likes you so much. After speaking, he turned into a colorful parrot and jumped to Lu Muan's shoulder to rub her hand. He wanted to rub the little master's face and neck, but when he thought of the handsome man in red and Mo Yan's cold light, he didn't dare. Lu Muan gave him a blank look. You give me a quiet meeting. Bingji looked at her with an aggrieved expression, but she didn't say any more, standing on her shoulders and began to resume her practice. Lu Muan stood up and put away the octopus monster on the ground, looked at the pool of water that had frozen into deep ice with regret, and lost interest in exploring the octopus monster's cave. After she recovered her mental strength, she could roughly detect the situation in the deep pool, and there was no spirit grass or spirit stone that she needed. It's just that I always feel that it's a bit strange for the 8th order octopus monster to survive in this deep pool. Thinking that Lu Mubai and the others were worried about her own danger, she didn't want to stay any longer, and stepped out of the mountain with the golden longsword.